Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Bank Marketing Show. We're certainly glad to have you with us as always. We appreciate you chiming in to listen, encourage you to subscribe. We always are resourceful and look forward to a great visit today. Dan, I'll hand it off to you because you have worked with these guys, but I think the discussions today around being data-driven and data-driven marketing is going to be really great for all of our listeners.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. So today we've got a couple folks from a company called Insait. We ran into them at a conference earlier this year, talking all about kind of fintech and bank tech, and we've touched on this topic here and there in the podcast before, but really wanted to kind of get into what data-driven marketing really means. It's a big buzzword that is used all over the place. I think probably every financial brand article in the last year has that somewhere in there. Chris, you and I dabble in this from the kind of marketing side. The Insait team really gets into it from the tech and the data side. So I'm excited to get into this today. So we've got Insait's a company kind of co-headquartered. Should I say co-headquartered, or you're headquartered in Israel? But I know Ilan, you spent some time in New York as well. So we've got Ilan and Dvir from Insait on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Hey guys, thank you.
So yeah, I just kind of figured we'd start with a kind of overview of what Insait is, and just give us kind of the history, why the company got started, what your mission is. We'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Dan. So I'm Dvir. I'm the CEO and a co-founder of the company. Before that, I was a recommendation system researcher, both at Microsoft and Facebook, now Meta. So recommendation engines are basically the ability of understanding what people are striving or what people are wanting to see, buy, look, and use based on their digital and financial acts in the past, right? And basically, while working there, and I also have a PhD in computer science, so you are being around data and big data all the time there, you see how while almost all huge corporations, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Spotify, Netflix, are using those big data capabilities in order to create personalized recommendations to their end users. When you get to these smaller institutions, whether it's regional banks, community banks, credit unions, you see that actually making sense of your data is extremely hard. So we went into the mission of actually digesting, cleaning, understanding those data points better for regional banks, community banks, and credit unions to actually make a personalized interaction, a component within these institutions without having an army of 50 data scientists, PhDs around, having huge funds for every marketing campaign that you do. Because marketeers in community banks wish to have 10, maybe 20 marketing campaigns a year. They don't have the ability to facilitate a data scientist for each of these marketing campaigns. The price is just enormous. It's impractical.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, there's so much data, even in small institutions. There's the struggle is the time it takes to go through it, and then the need to stand up the infrastructure. So I think the Insait platform, you're trying to kind of solve that problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the way we do it is, first of all, we create, and we're going to touch on that later on in the conversation, is something that we call as an attribution map, which is basically many small data points clients have from how much money they currently have in their checking account. When was the last time they opened a credit card? All these small maybe minute details when they are separate, but we're able to create those practically automatically, clean the data, and then also create a historical view of these data points. Now, once you have that attribution map of your clients actually making sense of what do they need or what is the process from being a one customer to a second customer, what is the process from having a loan to opening a CD, starting to make much more sense.
Let's get into that a little bit more. But Ilan, I'm going to give you a chance to say hello, but why don't you, I wanted to also kind of ask, let's break down what data-driven marketing really means. So, Ilan, can you give us some more kind of insight into what Insait thinks data-driven means?
I like
that might
the pun,
look like
no pun intended, right? So, hello everyone. So, first off, my name is Ilan Flax. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I am the head of business development as well as strategy at Insait. And so, I think it's a really important question to be asking about what does data-driven actually mean. And I think at the most basic level, it's really just using data to be able to make informed decisions. And as you said, Dan, we met at the conference where I think on every single billboard, every single person is using data-driven. And I think it's important to mention the timing of data-driven is basically we have always made data-driven decisions, especially within marketing. Actually, my grandfather is one of the first people to put up billboards around the highways around major cities in the United States, especially in the Northeast, around Philadelphia, around New York. And he was making a data-driven decision saying, people are driving to and from work every day. We're going to have eyeballs that are looking at billboards, and we should put the local businesses that is possibly going to serve them. Now, if we think about data-driven, putting up billboards is not necessarily data-driven. This is not what we think of when we think of data-driven. And so today, when we think about data-driven, what I think of is that data has revolutionized, data has changed. Now it is overwhelmingly digital. It is held in data warehouses, in data lakes, in core systems, or whatever it may be on a website. And that because the data has changed, the way in which we analyze data has changed. And that is basically what we are doing at Insait. But in the essence is we're using data to make a decision. But because data is revolutionized, has completely changed, the way in which we analyze data has completely changed by utilizing machine learning, by utilizing AI models, by being able to understand customers on a different level that my grandfather never had access to. And that is what we mean by data-driven, is utilizing the latest technology to be able to analyze the abundance of data that we now have access to.
And the utilization of that, I think, is the important point, because our listeners who are in community banks and credit unions and financial institutions all day long, every day, are not necessarily the ones with their fingers on the buttons to analyze that data and all of that. Obviously, IT departments, those types of things. So, for our listeners, guys, how can banks get started? How do they, okay, well, we've got our data, we've got our number of customers, we've got them broken down by data segments, whether they are deposit accounts, loans, et cetera. We've got them broken down by geographies, all these different ways that data can be taken and sorted and be data-driven as you're describing. So what are some good ways to get started, and how can those start to affect marketing campaign decisions and make those better?
Right. So at Insait, we are trying not only to be data-driven, but also to be objective-driven, which means that we do not only create that attribution map, which is basically what you now describe, like segmenting clients to different cohorts and understanding their financial status, but also understanding what are we striving to complete. And if, for example, we are now interested in having a CD campaign, right, to have acquisition of new customers or existing customers to open CD within our institution, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, how does the clients that already opened a CD in the last 1 month, 2 months, 6 months are looking like? And this term, a look-alike system, is exactly what you should have in mind when doing these marketing campaigns, which is basically having that attribution map, taking the people that already opened the CD in the last month and understanding what are the key factors that differentiate them from the rest of the population. Once you have that, you are starting to understand how would your marketing campaign look like. So if, for example, you see that these clients, 50% of those had a CD in the past, that might hint you that you should have a specific targeted campaign for people that had a CD in the past and didn't choose the rollover option. If you have another 30% that have a large sum of money in their checking account, and it is a steady income, but they are not putting it into work, maybe you should have another targeted marketing campaign for that segment as well. And this is a data-driven, label-oriented or objective-oriented marketing approach that we are trying to facilitate.
Can I turn the question back on you guys? As we come from the tech side, the data side, and you guys come from the marketing side of things, and we really are, as a company ourselves, trying to blend these, worlds together. And so how would you guys define necessarily data-driven? How do you find it in terms of, coming from the pure marketing side in terms of what does data-driven mean to you? Because that's a curious perspective as well.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I tend to think about it like, if from the basic level, right? If a customer comes into your bank and they start asking you like, well, here are my financial goals. Here's a problem that's going on in my life, right? You're, as a banker, you're taking that data in, right? And you're thinking, okay, what's this person's situation? What are the things we can do to help solve them? Whether that's a service, a product, a conversation, whatever it is. You're kind of making a data-driven decision on what to talk to them about. So data-driven marketing program is kind of like taking that at scale, right? If you've got 20, 30,000 customers or more, how do you do that for all of them all the time? Right? The smaller community banks, you're probably your top 10 customers or even your top couple percent of customers, you're probably really in the weeds with them. You're reaching out, you're paying attention to changes in their accounts. But a real data-driven program is doing that across the board.
Well, and I think to expound on what Dan was just saying, it's also about spend efficiency. So as marketing agencies, the first question, guys, that we're always, how much is that? We're going to run digital ad campaigns. We're going to do social media ad campaigns. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. How much? How much, so what is the spend tolerance? So to me, the answer to your question about being data-driven is also about efficiency. So by having data, we're not trying to, you used the example of billboards. So I'll use the example of mailings. So like a direct mail. So instead of trying to do a direct mail to the entire community to try to increase share of wallet from current customers or to acquire new customers, by having data segmentation for marketing, regardless of the platform, whether it's social or digital ads or whatever it may be, that data-driven segmentation allows us to, we only need to mail to this group. We only need to drive digital ads to this group within compliance, obviously, because we're all very familiar with the fact that we're in an industry that's compliant driven. But it allows that efficiency. And I think that's a big part of that data driven, so that you're not Dvir, your example about a CD customer. We're not sending ads to a current CD customer about, hey, do you know that we do CDs? Well, no, and that's not. We want to be talking to that CD customer about our other deposit account options or our loan options or whatever the case may be. That's being smartly data driven, I think, Ilan, to answer your question.
Yeah, I really liked what both of you said, but I think that Dan, one thing specifically about the scalability is it's sort of blending exactly what you both said is at scale, it's really important to have this personalized touch. And if you're sending messages to a ton of different people for CD campaigns, those who have CDs or, aren't that active or only have loans within the institution, the message doesn't really resonate with people, even make you push away from the institution. Like they don't really know who I am. And it almost can hurt this almost community vibe that a lot of community institutions are actually looking for. So I think the scalability of this personalized touch is one of the biggest data-driven sort of goals and benefits that it can actually provide.
For sure. I mean, I think too, what happens is, and what another layer that like what happens as you scale is everything just gets more complex, right? Like at every level, it's still, you're trying to think of like, what's the best message I can send to a particular customer at a time. But, if you're scaling that out to your entire customer base, there might be 100 different messages that are, 100 different variations of it that are the best thing for that customer. And you need to decide, well, maybe, okay, let's have an example. Like we're sending a CD message to customers with high savings account balances to say, take advantage of our CD rates. But maybe we're also sending a campaign to customers who look like they're sending a mortgage payment outside of the bank, right? But so part of it too is at scale is how do you decide which message to send to that customer? So there's I think most bank marketing programs out there do some sort of segmentation, but there's also that, as you're scaling it up, making sure that part of making sure that the messages are relevant is making sure you're not getting too much, or that, you're not kind of spamming people. I talked a lot of my banks about like, you buy a shirt, a t-shirt online, and you'll get into some email flow where it's like multiple emails a day forever. People don't want that from their bank, and people don't want that in general. People don't want that from their bank. So how do you boil that down and make sure when you're sending a message, it's impactful, it's relevant, and your customer base will get to know, hey, when I get something from my bank, it's useful.
Yeah, I love that point, because we see with customers, and I think it tags along with what Chris said, that banks are telling us, like emails are free for us. Well, like we can send everyone, we can spray and pray. And the answer is no, because yes, maybe the email itself, the marketing campaign itself may be cheap, but the feeling of a non-personalized communication from your bank is harmful from the standpoint of a community or a regional bank.
Yeah, you're my bank, and you've got most of my money. You should know me, or you should, at least not just spam me all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And people want to open future sort of emails if you're getting spammed on open this, open that, do this action, take this action. You stop listening after a little bit of a while.
The CD campaign example is, if you think, we talk a lot on the show about when you're sending a message, make sure it's relevant and valuable to the customer. So you're not saying like, hey, did you know we have CDs? You're sending hey, you've got a high savings account balance. You could be making more money, right? Yes, you're selling a CD, but you're saying you could be making more money. And that's value of the customer. You're essentially giving them more interest, letting them know about other things that you have. So it's not just promotion. It's, you really got something of value to them, and customers will appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and so a lot of what you guys do all day, every day is figuring out the nuances of that, and how does someone have a high propensity to purchase a certain product or to add a product or service. So talk to us a little bit about, what and how the data is showing that to you, and what kind of signals are you looking for? Let's dive into that a little deeper.
Yeah, of course. So this is actually where the magic happens. Because if we mentioned beforehand the attribution map, and maybe sometimes banks will have 10, 15, 20 attributions per customer, Insait has from 500 to 2,000 attributions per customer. And the way we do it is not only take static information, for example, the current status of that client, financially speaking, but also all the temporal changes. So all the historical attributions and the changes, the variations within those. So once we have these variations, we're able to pick up life events, right? We are able to pick up changes, differentiations within these clients, and actually understand what made them do that act. So if we have that a CD opener, that CD just ended, maybe this is the right time to engage. And we are not guessing. We are looking from past transactions and past clients that look similar to this client. So that lookalike system that we mentioned beforehand, yes, you can do it manually. going like using Tableau or Power BI and actually like look at the data manually, but you can also deploy look-alike mechanisms, algorithms that are able at scale with big data capabilities to sift through all the CD openings, all the loan openings, all the checking account openings, and actually understand the correlations and the causation between one's financial status and the fact that they actually open that. And once you deploy that lookalike system, and now it's real time, it's today, and you want to decide who you want to target, you can ask that lookalike system, hey, this is Chris. Should I offer them a CD and why? And that lookalike that already saw many people beforehand opening a CD, now the model can say, you know what? Yes, Chris is relevant. And he is relevant because he has a savings account currently in the bank and he can put his money to work.
I mean, it's interesting too, like, and it gets back to the scale point of, and we're using the CD example, but at scale, it's also right. It's there might be 20 different things, 20 different things you're looking at, and it's you've got to prioritize all those things. So if you're doing it manually with a Power BI model or something like that, you can pull your CD campaign list, but if you're trying to do multiple things at once, there's so many different kind of angles to look at, and timing. I think we were also thinking about, like, as we're prepping for this, we're also kind of talking about, like, the data driven is one part, right? The data can tell you what the propensity of a certain person to buy a certain product is. So let's talk a little about, like, the next step, right? We've got a list of customers that have a high propensity for something, but we still have to tell them about it. You could have that list and you could put a printed brochure in your lobby, but nobody's really going to see it. It's not going to reach that right audience. It's not going to resonate with them. So tell me a little about how you think about, like, the channels or the execution of the campaign, reaching people where you think they'll respond.
Right. Yeah. So I 100% agree. Like, having a good communication channel with your clients is crucial. Especially now when not only that we are, as we mentioned before, bombarding our clients with emails and snail mail and brochures and phone calls, but also the younger generation are not using these channels anymore. So younger generation prefer to be contacted through text-based applications, whether it's a chatbot within your website, whether it's iMessage in the phone, like directly, and they will also want to respond back in that communication channel. So unlike an email or a brochure that you need to actively, like, read the brochure or get that snail mail and decide to go online and do something actively, when you're speaking with even a human representative, but in a text-based manner, you can immediately respond. So you don't have that cutoff, which that cutoff is translated into a drop-off in your marketing funnel.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting point of just email's easy. So a lot of banks default to that, right? And a lot of banks are worried about kind of getting permission from customers to text them. But I like your point about, I guess it's the old marketing adage, right? Of right message, right place, right time. It's reaching people on the channel that they'll respond to, and where they can take action, right? Nobody, like, from the marketing perspective, I think about it in terms of competition, right? If you could send a really great targeted email out, but if your competitors are texting and you're trying to reach younger people, they're going to respond to that, more. They might not even see the email. How do you? Does your model, does your kind of platform take that kind of stuff into consideration? Like, how do you know what channel to choose or test?
Yeah, so we have a module called Preferred Channel Optimization. So basically, based on previous actions that client did, we are able to create a digital signature, actually hinting the organization whether that client should be approached using a human representative via email, or if that organization facilitates text-based interactions using that text platform. And it can also be like inviting them to the website to engage with a text-based conversation there. But yes, having that digital signature is crucial in today's marketing.
And I would extend it further is that we have experienced this in terms of sending out email campaigns and seeing that sometimes the response rate isn't just because it's not relevant or people just don't want to see it or it goes directly into spam box. And so one thing that at Insait that we've pushed for is to have almost a proactive outreach via a text channel. And this can be directly built into a website, directly into a particular application to basically meet the needs of the people and where they actually want to interact. And so we call it a proactive, basically, chatbot, which is able to reach out on a particular channel that others don't really have at the moment, but is reaching out in a channel that is really applicable to people and actually getting the message across to them in a way that is easy to respond and actually have a conversation. Fortunately, if you get an email, you have to take 3-4 clicks often to get even to the application. And so we wanted to simplify this process as well for people and make it in one possible place. It can be built into the email. It can be on wherever the message is actually getting across to make it easier for the end user to actually interact and have this conversation about their goals, how this product may be able to help them, understand what an APY may mean if it's not exactly 12 months and can get a little bit confusing for people at times. So whatever the actual, to basically help people in the process with the products that are most relevant for them.
Well, I love that, and it's communicating correctly. And we talked a little while ago about the image that your financial institution has to its customers by the way that we communicate to them. So if you have a 20-something or 30-something-year-old customer and you're expecting to mail them a letter and that's going to be competent communication to them, they're going to look at you as a bank and go, really? Seriously? As opposed to as they consider, in particular younger audiences probably, as they consider investing more by opening other new accounts or, they become a first-time home buyer or whatever the case may be. And, if they've been communicated in a way to them that is, that are the platforms that they exist on, and whether that's texting or whether that's maybe even social media or, other things and platforms and ways that they're used to communicating rather than looking like an old school, do I really even want to do business with this bank? And I think that, so it speaks to competency or perception of competency by financial institutions, wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah, definitely. We, for example, are working with a lender that shared with us that most of the loan applications are actually being requested after working hours and on weekends. And they have customers complaining that, how come in 2023, I don't have the ability to speak with someone or open my loan application after working hours? This is the working environment that we are in. And I think that not facilitating that option is just something that especially smaller banks cannot live with.
And another problem that's just harder for smaller banks to kind of compete with, right? If you're a kind of a neobank or fintech starting up, you start up with that, right? You start up with 24-hour response and 24-hour chat, that type of stuff. But it's really hard. It's a lot harder for the smaller banks to kind of adapt to it. Well, I wanted to talk through too, kind of an example here. I know, Ilan, you and I have been talking a lot about, CD campaign marketing. Everybody, the whole market here towards the end of 2023 is very deposit focused with the interest rate environment where it is. Can you talk a little about maybe a non-data driven versus data driven example? I know you've got some great stats from a CD campaign you guys have done, but I just want to kind of paint the picture for banks as to the power of all the stuff that we're talking about.
Sure. So I think that first and foremost, in terms of a non-data driven sort of campaign, will be a spray and pray campaign, which is quite simply, here's our total base of our population. Let's send everyone an email. Someone's going to be applicable, right? That's sort of the logic about it. But you're sending everyone a message and hoping. Really, that's the praying aspect of it.
It's a step below spam, right? It's you get the terrible spam messages, and you're like, why are they still sending these? It's because like one person out of every 2 million will respond, but it's that spammer's still making money. So this is like a step below that, where it's your customers and it's going to be relevant to some people.
Exactly. And it's why there is a no solicitation option, because there's the perception that there's a potential for people to be actually spammed. So I think it's a perfect sort of analogy to include. And this has numerous negative sort of effects. We've spoken about all of them already, I believe, in terms of hurting the connection, the harm of also wasting a channel that you're speaking to someone in. They may not be relevant for this particular product. They may be relevant for something else. And the list can sort of go on. And so in terms of an actual data-driven approach, what we have done at community banks already within the United States for CD campaigns is analyze who is actually applicable for a CD campaign. In one that we ran, we contacted only about 7,000 people, just a little bit more, and sent them all relevant messages based on their financial history in 4 different segment groups. Meaning we created the copywriting, the particular message that everyone should receive, and sent out the emails over the course of a month. This generated about 18 million in deposits. About 50% of it was new money brought into the institution. So without basically monopolizing the contacting method of messaging everyone, but a very small fraction of the community that is actually relevant, we were able to provide significant uplift. Now, this was about 250% higher than the normal conversion rates of a sort of spray and pray, reach out to everyone campaign. So it is something that we are proud of and believe that we can replicate. And the idea that we have thought about it in is because we are marketing and data, this is our marketing phrase, is almost a CD campaign in a box, to try and make it as simple for community banks to be able to replicate this type of process with very little data, basically sending out over a file and then being able to replicate this process. So I'm happy to go into a little bit more depth, but that's sort of to answer your question, Dan.
Yeah, and this is, and we're just full disclosure, we're working together on this, and we'll anybody that's trying to do a CD campaign, we'd love to chat and get your perspective on what's kind of working for you or not. But I think it's really powerful stuff. I mean, I think the spray and pray, you send 30, 40,000 emails maybe over the course of a month, and you don't get much back. But if I want to highlight, you mentioned this went out to 7,000 people, right? And this was a kind of bigger regional bank, but even for smaller banks, like you've got 7,000, you've got more than 7,000 customers. There's ways to break it down and make it so relevant and so compelling for those, using the data-driven stuff we've been talking about it to make it so compelling that you'll get that response. And the 50% new money thing is really important too.
That's big. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's trying to raise deposits, and you think, well, a lot of banks will put, say, hey, here's a CD rate that's only 12 months and only for new money, those types of things. But that stat is really powerful to say, like, we're reaching out to everybody. These are all current customers already, but there's some propensity we think they may have money elsewhere that they'll bring in, and they did.
I would also include that you really, for anybody, you only have about a sentence or two in terms of grasping their actual attention, and that we provide the information about who may be relevant, but a massive part of it is also the copywriting and what message people actually receive. And when you say, hey, X customer, you may be relevant or you're pre-approved for this product, this doesn't really connect with me in any sense.
Right.
And so a big piece of what we provide is saying, well, this is why you are applicable for this, or this is why we think this may be interesting for you, which just does enough to be able to spur interest for the actual person. And I think that's a big piece of what we try and do as well. And is also important in terms of marketing in general, is you want it to be applicable for the relevant people, not just send everyone a message.
Yeah, it's we're looking out for you, right? We're here to help you reach your goals, help you make more money. And here's some opportunities for you. Not just buy this thing.
Yeah, guys, I think for our listeners, it is so much of, and you both talked about this a little bit earlier too, is this is not only here and present and applicable now, this data-driven marketing approach, but it is also absolutely the future, and it's where things are going in the foreseeable future, because what you guys are utilizing is the organization of data, and it's utilizing AI, and it's utilizing the kind of things that are going to create the efficiencies and all of that we talked about some. And I hope that our listeners are taking a lot of this in, and it's giving them specific direction ideas. That's the hope there, is that they're going, okay, well, maybe even though we are a small community bank, we can do this. And Dan, like you said, I mean, we do have 7,000 customers, so we can do this, and maybe we ought to do it more efficiently than just mailing everybody or emailing everybody or whatever the case may be, and being more intentional and efficient and specific. I think these are great approaches that our listeners can really use, guys.
I'm happy to hear that first and foremost. But I also think it's important to mention that I think that there's an element of fear when people hear AI, machine learning, or it's a black box and things go in and what is actually happening behind the scenes, and what is the actual end result going to be. And I think it's important to say is it's really just a tool to achieve the goals that people are already trying to achieve, which is have really good personal connections with people, do it at scale so that there isn't people who fall through the cracks, and then build the business in terms of revenue, in terms of growth, whatever the business line is actually trying to achieve. It's not trying to take over people's jobs and make everything robotic and you go in and there's a robot serving you, but to achieve the goals that the institution is already trying to achieve. And it's just a method, it's just a tool to be able to get to these end goals.
Man, that's great stuff. Great summary.
I think just in terms of the trends of this type of technology, like obviously databases and analytics tools like Tableau have been around a long time, but I think what's really exciting in the bank tech world is there's a lot of new stuff like Insait that's making it easy. And what we've been talking about in like the CD in a Box campaign is just, how do we do specific things in a way where the smaller banks don't have to build a whole platform or grow an IT and analytics, practice in-house. Like, you can literally just sort of run this campaign, as a one-off and kind of go from there. You don't have to upend your roadmap for the next 2 or 3 years to build a warehouse. There's a lot of things you can do that have real impact, kind of quickly and a lot more easily than they have been the last few years, decade.
Yeah, easy to integrate into an existing strategic plan.
Yeah.
The bank's got. Yep.
Well, this has been great. This is one of those conversations, one of those episodes where my head is spinning with all kinds of ideas. So appreciate y'all coming on and chatting through this stuff. You got a minute to stick around for lightning round?
Of course. That's what we came on for, the lightning
round.
Yeah,
there you go. Let's just get to know you guys better.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, with two people here, I'll let you both kind of fight over who's answering, or you're both welcome to. But share personal best, business best, like something great that's happened.
Just finished my PhD in computer science. It was an 8-year process, like from bachelor to PhD. Extremely proud of that. My mom is as well, of course. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Been a good journey.
That's huge.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
I don't have anything remotely as impressive in terms of completing an 8-year PhD. But at least within Insait, I'm very proud of the fact that we are a relatively young company that is starting to service community banks in the United States, really going to a base that we are proud to serve. So it's nice to see an ideation of an idea actually come out into reality, and be able to make people happy and service them. And something that I think is a passion, as you heard Dvir say, in terms of how we started, to actually make it a reality is the whole idea in tech. You can speak about different, areas and different things, but it's about actually providing a quality service. And so I'm proud of the development over the little over a year that I've been here, in terms of actually getting on the ground and being able to make it a reality in terms of a service.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Dan, you and I can alternate these. Does a favorite book or a resource come to mind for you guys?
I have one, and I think I forced Dvir to read it at one point. Is Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. In the book, she speaks about fixed mindsets versus growth mindsets. And basically, fixed mindsets have the idea that intelligence is fixed, so you can be smart or you can be dumb. In a growth mindset, it's basically your effort and your intelligence intelligence is based on your effort and your learning, and you can continue to grow over time. So if there's a particular failure, it's not necessarily about you are dumb, you are not good enough. It's just a matter of you have things to learn, things to grow on. And I think it's a very nice mindset to have, for everyone to have, in terms of you can always improve, basically. And it's something that I pushed on Dvir to read, and I think he's read it quite recently.
Thank you for the recommendation. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. What is share a really impactful piece of advice you've gotten?
So I would start with something that my professor told me, and I think that it is relevant with every aspect of life, which is success doesn't come from what you occasionally do, but what you do consistently. And I think that it is relevant in marketing, in everywhere. Finance, of course. It's things probably won't come easy, but if you will stick to it, it will work eventually.
That's a great one.
Nice.
That's a great one. Well, so turning that around, is there some particular advice or something that you guys tell your team or tell others consistently?
Yeah, so I can just when I'm trying to do that, I'm rephrasing what I just said, and I'm saying that you shouldn't judge your vision by your first drafts, but keep going if you believe in it. So again, it's it's reiterating what I try to work and live by. If you see that vision coming to life, you need to keep working, because the first drafts will never look as you envision it, and that's okay. That's learning, that's experience.
Love it. The hard part's getting the first draft out. You can always improve it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But if you don't get that, if you don't ever get that down, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I know we mentioned the seed in a box campaign, but so I'd like to also just say, if you're running a CD campaign, if you're interested in that, definitely reach out. We'd love to kind of chat about what you're going through and kind of explain what this process what the CD in a box campaign that we're talking about is. I don't know. Probably the easiest way there is reach out at contact@bankmarketingshow.com, and you'll get me, and we'll set something up. So that's one thing. But how can if people are interested in Insait in general, want to learn more, how can they best get in touch with you?
So there's numerous ways that people can go to us. First and foremost, via LinkedIn, we have a website at Insait, insait.io, and then by email for either one of us, ilan@insait.io, as well as Dvir, DVIR @insait.io. So on any one of these platforms, we're happy to connect and discuss more.
Well, in our episode show notes from this, for all of our listeners, if you weren't able to write all of that down, we will have links to that and links to email for both of you guys as well. And want to encourage our listeners to inquire, to learn more, because this is such a sensible, great direction for community bankers and marketers to utilize and learn more. So, guys, we can't thank you enough for joining us today and giving us all this great information, making our listeners think and think about what is possible. and what it is that they can't do, even when it's not in their first draft, but to keep going, right? Yeah,
exactly.
So, really great stuff, guys. So thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.